This is called a Phaedra, and you find it out here in the high desert. It has natural caffeine in it, but it also will help with colds, congestion, and flu and stuff like that as well. Let's talk about our minimalist kit. Today we're out in the high desert. We're actually harvesting some materials, and I figured this would be a great time to show you guys this minimalist kit, and how I use it. So, at the very least, we need to cover the priorities of shelter, fire, water, and food is not necessary. So, we got a stainless steel single wall water bottle. So, number one, carry something to boil water in and carry water in, because water is a vital resource. I carry a roll of Paracord and a small roll of bankline. For fire making, we have our friction fire set. This is a bow drill set. I've got 2 yucca spindles, 2 sagebrush spindles, and 2 Paracords. I've also got my socket right here in my pocket. I always keep it on me. I've got a few tent stakes here that I just carved today from a juniper tree. And these are useful for setting up our plow point style shelter. I've got a bag of jerky and a bag of just grain biscuit crackers. We have our Mora Classic 2. We carry our Leatherman Wave Plus wool blanket, and this isn't a winter wool blanket. It's not as thick, it's not as big, but it's enough to keep me warm and help me stay comfortable if I've got a shelter over top and a fire out front. So then we've got our 6x8 lightweight tarp. Other than that, guys, that's everything we have for our minimal kit. So I'm going to show you how I set this kit up 2 different ways for camp. On days where I'm hiking all day long, or I'm just really tired, or I'm in an area that just doesn't have any trees or anything to tie a shelter up, this is how I basically put my wool blanket out. And mind you, I will have to collect some bedding material to go down underneath here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread my tarp out. This blanket is about a foot longer than I am. So I'm going to find the uphill side. The uphill side's over here. So I'm going to fold this blanket over once, about 6 inches, and then fold it again. Creates a sealed foot box on my wool blanket. Take my tarp, and I can fold it over my wool blanket. So essentially what we're doing is creating kind of like a little blanket sleeping bag. And I'm going to take the tarp and tuck it underneath. So just like this creates just a very simple bedroll. That's all of my extra gear that I have, and everything obviously can fit right inside here with me. If it was to rain, I just crawl all the way down into that blanket, pull it up over my head, take that tarp, pull it up over my head, and just stuff it under, and the rain will hit the tarp and roll off, and I'll be nice and snug inside of here. Okay, so option number 2 is we're in a camp. We're gonna be here for a little while, maybe a couple days. We want to be able to have somewhere to sleep that's going to be comfortable, it's going to be covered, and we can kind of get inside. So, I've got my tarp here. On this end of my tarp, I've got a little piece of bankline. And we're going to go ahead and tie it onto this juniper branch right here. These stakes that we carved. So we're going to go ahead and take our first stake. On my tarp, I have this bankline loop around the grommet. I take my tent stake, pull it up so it fits in that notch, and then I'm going to twist the stake up. This will secure that line around the stake and keep it from ever coming off, even if it gets windy. We're going to pull the corner of our tarp out until that tarp gets nice and taut. And hammer the stake right down into the ground. Now take your next corner. I always put my stakes, your stakes want to go in at an angle. So you want the point of your stake to be going towards the tarp. And you want the upper end of your stake going away. Alrighty guys, so here is this plow point style shelter. Now you can see we've got some sag on the tarp here. And I'm gonna show you how to fix that. This slack here, we're gonna get a pole. Now we don't want to put the wood from this right on our tarp because we don't want a hole poking through. So what I do is I'll take some bark or some grass or a bandana, maybe a sock or a piece of shirt or something like that, and I fold it over the top of the stick here. And that creates a cushion up against my tarp. And then I'll take another piece of bark and just wrap it around, and that will secure this so that it will stay on here. I'll put it about right here, and then we'll slide this pole right about, I usually go about a couple feet into the tarp. And you can see how that lifts the tarp up, makes it nice and tight now. If I want, I can add some extra stakes around the sides to really remove any gaps or get stacked brush. But our shelter's set, and so now we can put our bedding down inside of here and get our blanket on top, and then we'll put a fire out right here. So for our bedding, we just packed in juniper bark underneath our blanket, and so when we lay on this will keep us insulated from the ground. Okay, so you may have noticed that this is our bow drill set, but we do not have a bow, so we're gonna have to make one. And I went ahead and cut this juniper branch here. So there's our bow drill bow. So we've got our bow, there's our string, that's plenty. I'll go ahead and cut this off. Right here. So now we've got our bow drill bow, so we're actually ready to go ahead and make a fire. So it's this spindle, this our fork. Okay, you guys can see that. So this tree right here, this is called a pinyon pine. There's a couple different uses that I mainly use this for. One, I like to make tea from these needles. Bark on here develops these little bubbles. Hopefully, I don't know if you can see it. When I pop these bubbles, there's sap that comes out. Okay, and the sap on this pinyon pine, it helps keep things from getting infected. It helps promote healing, and so it's really good to have. Important to know your plants when you're coming out, and know your tree species and your plant species and what you can do with them, because those are going to be your tools. That's going to be your first aid kit. That's going to be your resources for making and using and doing a lot more with a lot less.